What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of the 5280 podcast on the MHRT Network. I'm your host, as always, Mundungus Creevy, alongside my co-hosts, Glenn Hauser and Cage Madrid. Unfortunately, we do not have Cameron Parker today. And we're expecting Ken Booker. He's having some webcam issues, so we'll get him added in whenever he's ready. But we... Every now and again, a great moment in sports history happens with sick players or injured players, like Michael Jordan in the flu game, or Alex Smith coming back from the broken leg to play. You know, just these amazing comeback feats. And unfortunately, Cam came down with the sniffles, and it was so bad that he just was not able to join us tonight. So prayers up for his health and healing. I pray that the doctors can figure out what the problem is. He can
tough crowd here.
Maybe he's able to go over to Walgreens and get some Dayquil. Just kind of get better. Cam.
I will say this, Cameron. Brandon Jones played sick in the game against Vegas. And that man had 5 total tackles, 2 PBUs, and an interception. No excuses.
Yeah.
No excuses.
Yeah.
Get your ass on the show right now.
Gage had his leg broke and was doing the show with his titties out and the camera off. He was still here.
Damn straight.
Cam.
Get back over here, Cam. No, not really, though, Cam. I hope you feel better, dude. Whatever you're dealing with does not sound fun at all.
Ken says he can't fix this camera. But anyways, we'll keep trying to figure it out. How you guys doing?
We're doing well. Doing
very well.
Okay, that's it. I usually have more time. All right. So
what were you planning on doing?
I don't know. I usually have Cam that talks for 10 minutes, so I figured I had some time. Let's talk a little bit of NFL before Before we go into, I'm sick too, but I made it. Before we go into any Broncos stuff, I kind of want to look at a little bit of the MVP picture because there's something going on that I don't know a lot of people noticed yet. But you got Saquon Barkley in the running for 2,000 yards this season.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have to include him in the MVP picture. Right now, it's looking like Josh Allen. But I think there's a very heavy argument for Saquon Barkley. Is there anybody else that you could see adding to this list?
Lamar.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I think that a lot of people have been talking about Lamar as the MVP this year.
And, one of Lamar's teammates, Derrick Henry, he's on pace for just short of 1,800 yards right now. And that's with a couple, I don't want to say poor games, but by his standards, but he's averaging just over 110 yards a game in 12 games so far. So, yeah. But Saquon, rarely do you see a running back, it's usually a quarterback that gets that award, but he's going to make it very, very difficult. I mean, 255 yards rushing the other day against the Rams, with his pass receiving was over 300 yards. Just, the guy's been absolutely phenomenal, and I'm happy for him. He got out of a terrible situation. He was never going to put up these kind of numbers in New York, and now he's behind a tremendous offensive line, even without Jason Kelce, and enjoying his best year so far.
Absolutely. I think the Eagles were the perfect situation for him when he signed there. Their offensive line gives him so much to offer, especially in terms of just like pure, just wide open holes to run through. It's insane. So I feel like Saquon Barkley was one of the best signings that a team has made in a long time. Him this year, and then Derrick Henry as well. I think both of those guys have made just tremendous differences for their football teams. And yeah, after a game like Saquon had on Sunday night, he absolutely has to be in the MVP conversation. When you have over 300 scrimmage yards in a game, that is rare territory. So I absolutely believe that he is deserving of that.
It's and even more enjoyable about his year is just thinking back to the hard knocks and the discussion in the Giants, boardroom or whatever you want to call it, where they're trying to convince each other that, he's not going to land somewhere else or it's not going to be that big a deal. And sure enough, he lands with their biggest rival and is kicking ass.
And then there's the very famous clip of John Mara saying that if he lands in Philadelphia, I won't be able to sleep. And Joe Shane, the GM, said, "We're paying Daniel Jones $40 million a year not to hand the ball off to a multi-million-dollar running back." And now neither one of those players are on the team. Can't imagine that John Mara's sleeping much now after this. It's just an absolute train wreck over there. Now these next few games for them are just going to be all about evaluation. Is Tommy DeVito or Drew Lock going to be able to carry them as a bridge quarterback until they find their quarterback of the future? Who personnel-wise is still going to be on this roster? Are Joe Shane and Brian Dable still going to be a part of it? They're doing a lot of soul searching right now in New York.
And now Malik Neighbors is upset. He was complaining about getting his first touches when it was 30-0. But they do have a new teammate at least, and I'm sure he was a difference maker in Denver.
Problems.
Yeah. Listen, I hate picking on Greg because I did really enjoy him and I wanted him to pan out with the Broncos. But Greg Dulcich was picked up by the Giants today, so. Those luscious locks will be making their way to the Meadowlands.
Now, in case anyone was wondering, he was able to be picked up because we cut him. Just in case people weren't aware.
Yep. So Greg Dulcich, he was placed on waivers yesterday by the Broncos. They needed to free up a couple of spots on the active roster because they have both Josh Reynolds and Drew Sanders coming back. They've already activated Sanders off of PUP. They'll probably activate Reynolds some point this week because they also waived Calvin Throckmorton. But as far as Greg Dulcich from the Giants, Mundungus is very upset about that. But as far as Greg Dulcich to the Giants is concerned, I don't think that he's going to be a difference maker. Obviously, this team is actively in tank mode right now. It might be funny to some extent for Broncos country to see Drew Lock possibly throwing the ball to Greg Dulcich because it doesn't look like Tommy DeVito is going to be able to play this week on Thanksgiving. I don't know if Dulcich would play so soon getting there, but yeah, man, I think it's definitely going to be fun watching Dulcich these next couple of weeks. Maybe they'll give him a role just because they're so desperate for somebody to make an impact, but this team is literally trying to get to the number 1 overall pick. They need a quarterback. They need to completely reset their franchise, and the only way to get there is through Tank City.
Yep. And as promised, KB82 or Cameron Parker with a tan. Either one, whichever one you want to go with.
My answers aren't as long-winded, though.
Nobody's are, so that's fine. It's okay. He always gives me time to do all the producer stuff, and you guys don't. You suck.
I like
Great
how
to see you again.
You picked up my thing perfectly when I was talking about Bill when he said, "Oh, I knew they were going to come back from 70." It's like, remember when he did like the Simpsons? Did you know it was from the Simpsons? My little reply.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, it was like a little inside joke. It's like, why didn't you tell anybody? Why did you keep it to yourself? But yeah, I know. I love Bill. Bill's hilarious. He cracks me up. Oh yeah, guys.
We were talking about that. We were talking about that in the green room. All the names that we were having him read.
So for anyone that doesn't know what these guys are talking about, it was the most recent neighborhood.
Everyone should know.
I don't know. When we're talking NFL and we mention the word name Bill, Bronco Bill is way down that list. So,
ouch.
Oh, man. So how you guys been? I like your show. I like watching the Sunday show for sure because I don't know. I usually just kind of watch the game by myself.
Mm-hmm.
People are kind of annoying, whatever, when it comes to the Broncos, and it's always fun to watch it with you guys.
Oh, yeah. So, again, well, not again, because we haven't even said it yet, but we want to welcome KB82, Kenneth Booker, to the show. He is a Denver Broncos sports writer over at MHH, which is partnered with Sports Illustrated, correct?
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure I got all that right, because, yeah.
I think so. No, yeah, we're like owned by them. Like we're not directly for Sports Illustrated, I guess.
Okay.
So
we're like
Ken, we
independent
were just talking about as you were getting your technical difficulties. We were just talking about the Giants picking up Dulcich and the whole Saquon now in the running for MVP.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Do you think he has a good shot at overtaking one of those top two quarterbacks for MVP?
I don't know. It's almost like in college right now. To overtake a quarterback or somebody special like in college with Travis Hunter playing two ways, you have to have a super, super special season. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. I think a quarterback still takes it. Lamar Jackson, maybe I don't know. Maybe they get the, what do they call it, voter fatigue for Lamar Jackson, and they give it to a new person. But it is an awesome story, though. I know my dad's pissed. He's a Giants fan, and he hates Daniel Jones, and he loves Saquon Barkley.
I almost think that, like, if Saquon hits 2,000, you have to, because that's such a rare thing, right? Like, that's like quarterbacks throwing for 5,500 yards in a season.
I don't even think it's 10 people yet, right? It's like 6 or something like that.
7, isn't it?
It's a very prestigious list.
Yeah.
So I think if he hits 2,000, you have to.
And even with 17 games, you're still looking at like an average of like 120 yards a game. I mean, which is unbelievable. In the past, it would be, to get to 1,000, you're at 66 yards a game or 60 yards a game, which is so manageable. That figure doesn't even stand out anymore. But 2,000 is just ridiculous. You consistently have to be just trampling people. I mean, it's pretty
it makes Terrell Davis' season that much more insane, and his playoff performances.
Yeah,
he averaged 140 yards a game in 12 playoff games. I don't think anybody's close to that. Maybe there's a couple people. I think Molster might be close, but he only did it in a few games. So it wasn't a big sample size.
I think it's tough with a lot of these awards because I hate to be so blunt about this, but a lot of the journalists who are voting for these awards are non-ball knowers. They just look at stats and pick whoever has the best stats, usually at the quarterback position, and that's who wins MVP. The rookie who's got the best stats ends up with Offensive Rookie of the Year, when you got to peel back behind those layers and look at their film, look at how they're actually contributing to their team on a down-to-down basis. And right now, I don't think that you could pick somebody who's contributing to their team more than Saquon Barkley is right now. I mean, he single-handedly put that entire Eagles team on his back on Sunday night, over 300 scrimmage yards. When you have a game like that, clearly your entire offense would basically just fall apart without you. So I just don't see why you wouldn't give Saquon the award. But again, a lot of non-ball knowers out there that are voting for that award.
Well, let me throw a name out there for you as well. Another one, not Sam Hartman.
Did you still
Dulcich?
Jared Goff.
Oh yeah, that's a special season for them.
Number one team in football. I don't think there's a team that's really that close to being as complete as the Lions, and I don't see why Jared Goff couldn't be in the MVP conversation.
You look at almost all the advanced quarterback metrics that are out there, like completion percentage over expected, success rate, expected points added per play. Like Jared Goff is towards the top of that list in pretty much every major statistical category for advanced quarterbacks. I mean, I don't understand why he's not really being heavily discussed, but you think about just the supporting cast that he has, and I think a lot of people are saying, yeah, but he wouldn't be doing that if he wasn't throwing the ball to Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and handing the ball off to David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. But Jared Goff is playing really efficient football right now, and I do think that he deserves the respect for that.
And how many quarterbacks could throw 5 interceptions in a game and then bring his team back from a sizable deficit and win that game? I mean, this guy is, and his coach loves him, and this team is just rocking and rolling. First of all, I think they're probably the most popular team in the NFL, outside of your own home team that you prefer. But I think like they're like your second favorite. Like nobody would be disappointed if the Lions won the Super Bowl this year, and they're doing it without their best defensive player. I mean, this is it's remarkable what's happening there, and I think this coach is just the coolest dude ever. I mean, he's the boss, man.
Yeah, Dan Campbell seems like a guy you'd run through a wall for. And nobody ever talks about the Lions have never even been to a Super Bowl,
Right?
In their entire team history. With all the years of Barry Sanders, they had that one year where they had Scott Mitchell and Herman Moore and Perriman, and there was another receiver with Barry as their running back, and I think they ran into like the Packers or something, and they held Barry to 0 yards. Like for majority of the game, it was like -3 yards. But he eventually got like a 3 or 4 yard run and got it down to 0 yards, which is insane. To hold Barry Sanders to 0 yards, but
you think we get a co-MVP?
What happened? I don't know. I think Saquon's he's got like everything. He's got the big play. He's carrying his team, and he also has that highlight play where he jumps backwards. They actually included in Madden now. Have you seen that? Yeah, it's really cool.
What's cool about Saquon is with the game he was playing against the Giants, and I think we talked about this after it happened. He was sitting on the cameras caught him with Sirianni sitting on the bench, and Sirianni told him, "You're 13 yards away from breaking your own personal rushing game record. Would you like to go back in?" And he said, "No, let the younger guys eat." So he didn't go back in and which he handily would have, as you would assume, broken that record against his former team. And sure enough, he then ends up getting it by a mile against the Rams the other night. Just karma worked out for him, like that was pretty special. And I don't know if you guys saw it too, after he made one of his long touchdown runs, he tossed the ball to somebody they have like these field side suites. He tosses it to the guy, and then you see him on the sideline. He's asking, I'm assuming the equipment manager, "Oh, do you have the ball?" And he goes, "No, you threw it in the crowd." And like Saquon's like look on his face was like he just got a season-ending injury. It was just so funny. He's someone that's very easy to root for.
Yeah.
So have you ever seen his interview with him and Mike? He's on Mike Tyson's Hot Boxing. And Mike Tyson kind of kicks some knowledge to him about, he's like, "Yeah, people do me wrong. They're like out of my life." And Mike Tyson's like, "Nah, you can't do that, man. You can't let them, now they have the power over you to change who you are as a person." He's like, you got to forgive them. And I don't know. It's essentially he was teaching them just to grow as a person and how to deal with all the people that are going to be coming into his life. That are going to stab him in the back, and how to react and how not to like let that change you as a person. It was a really cool moment. I'm pretty sure you can like Google it, whatever, or YouTube it.
Yeah,
that was pretty neat.
So we've talked a little bit about the MVP. Other than that, there's not a whole lot going on right now. It's kind of right in that lull of everybody knows who sucks and everybody knows who doesn't. So let's go ahead and talk some Broncos. Broncos cracked the top 10 in power rankings. Boom! Wow. We are at number 10.
Very well deserved.
Yeah, that's cool. That defense, man, they'll keep you in any game.
Yeah, and I do want to pick up kind of where Gage was talking about. We cut Greg Dulcich. We activated Drew Sanders off the PUP. Is how big of an impact is Drew going to have, and where is he lining up? Is he outside or inside?
So Mike Kliss put out a tweet today that referred to him as outside. So I'm going to assume it's going to be on the edge, but I think that where we're likely going to see Drew Sanders, at least right off the bat, is special teams. I just don't know if they've got a place for him on defense right now. Dondre Tillman's playing well as a rotational edge rusher. Obviously, they've been mixing Jonah Ellis in more and more these last couple of weeks. Jonathan Cooper, Nick Bonito, those are your entrenched two starters. So I'm interested to see how they want to mix him in. But right now, I think that where we could see him right off the bat is special teams. This special teams unit has already been amongst the top 10 pretty much in every category this year. I think that adding another guy up front like Drew Sanders, it could ultimately help solve some of your protection issues as well, getting him maybe on the wing or something like that and field goal protections. There are various ways that we could use that. So we got Landon in here saying that it's very nice, but it's all but confirmed that Reynolds will be back this week. Perfect. That's pretty much the same
good.
vibe
And
that I'm getting as well.
I know we talked about that last week where we think that Reynolds is basically just going to be taking Humphrey's kind of not spot, but catches, rotation.
Well, I think Reynolds will be your Z. So he'll be out on the outside. You can motion him, those kinds of things. He'll be lining up off the ball. I don't think that you'll want to exactly put him in the same role as Humphrey because Humphrey's a good run blocker. I think you want to keep Humphrey in that role because you don't really have a tight end that's consistently contributing as a run blocker right now. So I think that might be the kind of generalized idea.
If anybody hurts Vele, maybe some touches for Vele. I think he'll get some touches here and there to spell some people, and then it'll just be based on production on his playing time.
So do you think we remove a wide receiver off the 53 to put Reynolds back on there, or do you think that we just add him to the mix that we have right now?
I don't know.
Who would you cut?
Not cut.
Or drop down.
I think Humphrey's been on the active all year, right? He hasn't had any practice squad elevations because
no. I think we've seen every wide receiver that's on the 53. I'm pretty sure we've seen on a regular basis.
Well, so you could cut Humphrey and put him on the practice squad and then elevate him 3 times from the practice squad to the active roster. I just am trying to remember if they did that already with him this year. I can't remember. I know they did last year. Because that might be the best idea.
No, he didn't start out on the 53.
Yeah.
Actually, yes, that first game, he was elevated for game 1, I believe.
And I think stayed elevated after that.
Checking right now.
But I think out of everybody that's on the 53, wide receiver-wise, we've seen them all in game on a regular basis.
Okay, so he did start off on the practice squad this year. He's been elevated once, so you can elevate him 2 more times.
Okay.
And he's one of those players that has been with Peyton for a long time, so I'm sure he understands how things work with him and would be in no rush to leave Denver.
Yeah.
It's funny when you talk about people getting cut, I just think of like a prison style. That's how you get cut. It was like stab you in the corner of the locker room or something.
So speaking
Sorry,
of
bro,
prison,
you're just not pulling your weight.
Yeah. Speaking of prison, we just beat the Raiders again.
It's like, oh my God, you cut that dude 3 times that year.
So last year we broke the unbeaten streak of the Chiefs and the Broncos. This year we broke the streak of the Raiders and the Broncos. And not only did we beat them once, we beat them twice. We finally get a sweep over the Raiders, and it looks like, as far as this year goes, we found the number 1 receiver that was supposed to be the number 1 receiver, i.e. Cortland Sutton. Mm-hmm. It looks like has finally found the groove that he was meant to be in. That second half, he absolutely killed it.
Yeah, he did.
him and Bo Nix are like pretty good together. I love how they're just growing as a duo. I also like how he doesn't just solely depend on Cortland Sutton as well.
Mm-hmm.
He spreads the ball around really well. But yeah, it's nice to see Sutton because he's money in the red zone. He's got excellent on the 50-50 balls. He excellent on the toe drags. I don't know how many times they've said it wasn't a catch, and then as they went to the replay, they were like, "Oh my God, no, it is a catch."
Mm-hmm.
It's happened at least 3 times, I know for sure. I think in that KC game, or was it last year, or last night? I can't remember, but yeah, it's nice to see him producing again.
Yeah, and I think it's very apparent, and you touched on it. The chemistry that he has with Bo Nix. Whenever Bo Nix places a ball like low in order to avoid him getting contact, or high in order to just let him go up there and get it, that's those two just being on the same page, knowing where each other is going to be at all times. It's not quite at the level of Mahomes and Kelsey, but as the years go on, and I do believe Cortland Sutton is going to be here long term, I think that he's finally found a quarterback that he's got that consistent chemistry with, not just on 50-50 balls in red zone like he did with Russ. I think that it's more between the 20s, on in-breaking routes and stop routes and all that stuff. Cortland Sutton has just been thriving with Bo Nix. So, yeah, man, it's just really cool to see the chemistry that those two already have, and it's only going to get better as time goes on. So that was one thing that definitely stood out to me in this game. And it wasn't just in the second half. I thought in the first half, like, Bo Nix was really doing a good job getting the ball in the hands of his playmakers on third down, especially. I thought Bo Nix was money to guys like Sutton, to guys like Vele, Troy Franklin as well. So it's not just Sutton. All of them are getting involved, and it's due to Bo Nix spreading the football around.
Yeah, and like it does drive me nuts when Cortland drops the easy, or what seems to be the easy passes, but as Ken described, those other spectacular catches, and he is just, he's just been such a reliable leader on this team, and you see it in his press conferences. He carries himself a lot differently. And I'm really happy for him with this opportunity that he has with just having a real professional quarterback that, they understand each other. You mentioned Vele, and, he had his career best game, and I'm just going to pull up Henry Chisholm had a tweet earlier tonight. Said Devon Vele ranks 7th among rookie wide receivers in receiving yards and catches. Every player in front of him was drafted in the top 30. Like,
oh, wow.
Guy none of us had ever heard of. We're like, what's going on here? A guy that's older than Gage. Like, he's just like, and here he is. And
wow.
Just so dependable. Just is. No, I'm not saying that as a negative, but I'm just saying, like, he's. I
was like, how old is he?
He's like 27, I think, isn't he? Like, Vele is.
Okay.
It's just. What a great addition, and kudos to George Payton and Sean Payton for finding Vele and taking a chance on this pick. It's been spectacular.
He's the true definition of a diamond in the rough.
Oh my shit.
They had a pretty good offseason, like, quietly. Like, John Franklin Myers, Vele. Franklin is like, I don't know what. He was like the guy who barely made the team, even being such a high draft pick and being traded up for, to where, he's producing now. Him and Mims are presenting some issues for these linebackers and safeties. And when these guys coming out of the backfield, running these wheel routes, or just running out to the side on these quick out routes to get those open lanes for Vele, as the safeties will shift over, the linebackers will shift over and leave that open area. So yeah, this season went from exciting in the preseason to like kind of demoralizing that first 2 games to like super exciting again. I don't know. It's insane. It's an exciting time to be a Broncos fan.
But Ken, you make a good point, about the offseason signings and just some of the transactions, and it just prompted me to start thinking, about some of the best ones. I mean, Gage referenced Brandon Jones. I mean, this guy has been invaluable. You know, getting
Definitely.
PJ Locke back on a contract that was considerably less than I was expecting. You know, like him to sign, or that John Franklin Myers basically like a pick swap. I mean, just and then immediately signing him to a contract for I believe 3 years. You know, it was just one after another, and they, you know, getting Justin Sternod to change his mind, you know, from going to Carolina and coming back, and I'm sure he's thrilled that he made that decision. You know, it's been fun to watch. I mean, we're 7-5 and have 5 winnable games. I'm not saying we're going to win the next 5, but we do have 5 games that are within reach, staring us in the face.
Well, John Franklin Myers' total sack, our highest season sack count is 6, and he already has 5 right now. So he's well within reach of eclipsing it by a few sacks at least. That's insane.
And then there's Nick Benito with like 84 already.
Every single game he sacks people. And he probably brings a sack lunch.
First Bronco with double-digit sacks since Von Miller. That is insane, man. He has just been incredible.
The crazy part is he like only really has one move. Like it's just that speed rush around the edge. He doesn't have a spin. But they know it's coming and they still can't stop it.
Well, and that's kind of one of the things I said on Sunday on the neighborhood was, you know, Benito kind of has some of the same problems as Von Miller and kind of the same move. Like Von's move was speed and the dip, and he'd get around the edge, but he also would get off the ball so fast that they would call him on, you know, offsides. And that's the same problem we get with Benito. He's off the line so quick or ready to go that he would just jump. And that, listen, I don't like Denver getting penalties, but I'll take it. If he's put off the ball that fast, I'll take it.
Let's just 3rd and 1. And you're like, come on.
Bold, on the other hand. Stop it.
I mean, literally, he made Baron Browning expendable. I mean, Baron's injury history also did, but it was very easy for the Broncos to say goodbye to him during the season because of Benito and these other pass rushers that we've got going.
And I think to Benito's credit too. I think to Benito's credit too, he does a good job, especially this year. He's done a good job of working his way through the trash and getting better as a run defender. Like that was one area where we could all say, like, okay, he needs to get better in that department. He needs to develop a little more play strength, and I feel like he has done that. I feel like with that speed move, he's also developed an inside counter that I've seen him use a couple of times that has kind of gotten tackles to at least bite and be like, okay, we can at least, you know, we have to pay attention to this guy, not just purely to dip and get under us with speed. He can also counter to the inside as well. So I do want to give him at least a little bit of credit there because I think he has done some things this offseason to really refine his game and make him more of a complete player.
Yeah, and Jeff Bryan brings it up perfect. Like that interior push opens it up for the edge guys. We have not had interior push like that in years.
And it was sad to see that Zach Allen wasn't in the game, but it was nice to see that we didn't need him, I guess. We still got the win.
Could you imagine how it would have been with him in there, though?
Yeah.
I don't think we struggled as much in that first half.
No.
Yeah, that's he's definitely a big part. Him and like Riley Moss also that changed the entire complexion of the game when he went out.
Fantasy team.
So has anyone heard a peep about Riley Moss this week?
He's fine.
Yeah, they said he could have came in and played still, but they decided to keep him out. But it's an MCL or something, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a sprain.
Mm-hmm.
So is he in line to play in on Monday?
Sounds like it.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes with those MCL injuries, once the adrenaline wears off and once you wake up the next morning and the swelling sets in, things might look a little bit different. So we haven't heard from Sean Payton on the subject since Sunday. Maybe something has changed between now and then, but I would fully anticipate Moss to go. Once we see what the injury report says on Wednesday, though, that'll give us more of a clue about where he's at.
You know, when these injuries happen, I often look around at the teammates and the opposing team, and they all took a knee, Raiders and Broncos alike. And I'm like, oh, that's that's generally code for this is not good, And so when Peyton said that in the presser, that was good news. I just had not heard any updates, so hopefully that's continued.
Yeah.
That knee injury reminds me of did you guys watch the CU where that guy tried to take out Shadir's knee?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, like, it wasn't like a bang play at all. Like, he could have hit it, he could have leveled him if he wanted to. He could have did much worse with a chest hit or hit at the waist. He could have still messed him up. But it looked like he targeted that knee. And the referees not only didn't call it, they called it and picked the penalty up. I thought that was insane. I thought he tried to end his career, and I don't know where the offensive linemen were, but I would have been punching that dude in the head on the ground and rubbing his face into the ground, all this different stuff.
Seton should have taken care of business there. I mean, that's something you'd expect from a Nebraska player, not from.
Hey, they don't miss those penalties on the Huskers, so maybe you should just step your game up and be Huskers fans. I'm just saying.
That should have been a brawl.
That should have been.
I mean, earlier this year, we saw that Saints-Chargers game where that Saints player tried to take out Justin Herbert's leg.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Bradley Bozeman, his center, went over there and took care of business, man. He leveled that guy. And he I think he had to eat a fine afterwards, but that the rest of that offensive line room and probably Justin Herbert was covering that fine because, man, that's exactly what you expect out of your offensive lineman when – some defenders trying to do something cheap and dirty like that, you level their ass.
Yeah. So Jeff Bryan brings up the depth that we have all along the roster, and then Landon brings up Levi Wallace coming in to replace Riley Moss when he goes out. And that's also something that we haven't had in a while. Like, there was always that concern where if we had a corner go down, who's going to come in to take his place? Like, we had Mathis come in at one point, and he was okay for a season. And then there was who was the other one besides Mathis? The one that we finally got rid of.
Moreau last year.
Fabian Moreau. It was the year before that.
There was somebody else too.
Started with an M.
Michael Jordan?
Yes, Michael Jordan.
Michael Ojemudia?
It might have been Ojemudia.
Is he still in the league? I know he was in the league for a few more years.
I think he's in like Arizona on the practice squad or something like that.
Oh, that's good.
He's still in Big Fangio's doghouse. That's where we can find him.
At least we didn't have to see Mathis on the field. Jay.
I'll give Mathis credit, man. He played a lot better in training camp in the preseason, like a lot better. Dude was lost in man coverage in the first part of last year when he was playing, and this year it looked like he was holding his own, but he got injured in camp and kind of got his progress halted a little bit. But I was actually going to be curious to see if Mathis would have gone into the game, but I'm good with Levi Wallace. I think that he went in there and he held his own perfectly fine. That's what you would expect out of a veteran player like him. We didn't see any egregious mental errors from him or anything like that. So, yeah, man, if for some reason Levi has to go, then I think that the Broncos will be okay.
What do you think Mike is doing on his computer? I think he's ordering a pizza.
On my phone, I'm looking, trying to figure out who that corner was. It's bugging me.
So Mike doesn't order one pizza, just so you know.
No, and that's only on Sundays.
He's like that dude on Key and Peele. Have you ever seen that one? And he acts like he's at a party. He's like, yeah, I'll get one large cheesy pizza. He's like, does anybody else want one? I'm like, yeah, make that two cheesy pizzas.
Mike lives in a field on a prairie. They don't deliver pizza out where he lives.
Where?
He lives on a field on a prairie.
They take the pizza box to a tumbleweed and it eventually gets to his house.
It's like horseback.
Y'all make fun of me for living out in the country, but my internet's better than all your internet. And I didn't have any webcam problems, Ken.
Hey.
So eat my shorts, all three of you. How about that?
I'm like Bronco Bill when it comes to internet.
It's right here.
Hey, you guys, I'm going home.
Now, I did want to bring up because
it does look like him, huh?
That's my job, to swerve off and then bring it back. So we were talking about rookies. We were talking about Bo Nix. And I did want to
I'm
bring
going to
up
draw a
that-
beard on Cartman. You know that.
Oh, I might do that myself. Perfect. Screw you guys.
A little Wolfman Jack
Now I don't
beard.
remember where I was going with that. Oh, we like those first 2-3 games. We're all whining and complaining and upset because we're not seeing the leash be let off Bo Nix. We're not really seeing the play calling we want. We're not seeing the offense that we want. And there was a lot of criticism like, hey, Sean Payton has never had a rookie quarterback. We don't know what he's going to do. It looks like the plan that he had laid out for Bo worked perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. I like he seems like he was a tough guy, but he was consistently tough. He wasn't like nice one day and throwing his players under the bus the next day. But and Bo's the guy that doesn't seem like he gets rattled. He'll take all your information in it. He's pretty good at constructive criticism, and it seems like they're growing pretty well together because of it. There was that one spat on the side, but it was I don't know. Besides that, yeah, they've been like a pretty good relationship. They get better every week.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I think that we need to continue to just sing praise for what Bo Nix is doing, especially as a rookie quarterback. The way that he is ripping seeds on in-breakers on third down, the way that he's finding soft spots in zone coverage and consistently attacking it, the way that he's processing information that he's given on the field, both pre and post snap, he is already operating like an elite quarterback. I mean, especially over these last 4 or 5 games, we've seen just this light bulb flip in Bo Nix's head, and he has been able to just really see it on a whole different level. I thought that in this game, we continue to see him just make clutch throw after clutch throw on third down, and third down is the money down in the NFL. That's where you can make your living in this league, is on third down. And he's spreading the ball around to guys like Cortland Sutton on digs, Devon Bailey on sit routes. They're trying to get that go ball down the boundary to Troy Franklin. They just have not been able to hit it this year for whatever reason. Hopefully they'll be able to hit it. But I think all the criticisms of Bo Nix having a lack of arm talent, we can put all that stuff to bed. The way that he's ripping 30-yard frozen ropes down the field on a line, that takes special arm talent to be able to do that. And he's making these throws on a consistent basis.
You know,
So-
The NFL did not respect Bo Nix coming into the league.
you know,
Sorry,
Gage.
Glenn.
Oh, God.
Well, I was going to say, so David brings up a good point. Like, this was supposed to be a rebuild year. So if this is a rebuild year, what, like, you look at it right now, this is probably going to be the worst roster that Bo Nix is going to have to deal with over the next 5 to 6 seasons.
Definitely. There's no superstars on their offense. The closest one is Sutton. Everybody else is like unproven or kind of a retread with it. I don't know.
You know, to add to Gage's list about Bo Nix, and I hope you don't mind me piggybacking on this, Gage, but
Oh, please.
he's not making mistakes. He's not taking sacks. He's not turning over the ball. So in addition to really proving himself as having a rifle for an arm and just making these great passes, he's also just, I mean, when he's taken one sack, you know, in this past game, even though the first half didn't go so hot, you know, just this guy is reliable. And I think that's what Sean Payton loves the most about him, is that he can trust him. He can trust a 24-year-old rookie quarterback with his entire team. And you know, you were talking about some of the passes he makes. Second week in a row, we see a little swing pass in stride to Marvin Mims. That guy is like a rocket ship. I mean, that was how he got down to the goal line that fast. It was incredible. So yes, please keep dialing those up as well.
They almost turn those plays in with those like little wheel routes. Almost remind me of those arena football motions where they're like running already. And like, how are you going to stop that? Unless you hit him like right off the bat. Yeah. He's going to squeak through some cracks and he's going to be gone.
So David said, well, everyone said that Bo's not a first-round pick, and now he's in the same conversation as the Rookie of the Year, which I think is
I said that.
Yeah, you obviously had Jaden Daniels at the top of the list through the first 6 games, but since then, you can't really argue with Bo Nix's numbers. Like he's above Jaden Daniels in the numbers. He's top 10 in all NFL quarterbacks over the last 9 games.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see at this point. I think you have to make more of a case for Jaden Daniels to win it over Bo Nix than Bo Nix to win it over Jaden Daniels.
You almost have to remember the beginning of the season to think about Jaden Daniels. After that, it's been not pedestrian, but it hasn't been spectacular like it was in the beginning.
Yeah, and I'm trying not to overblow it as much as I can, but you look at Jaden Daniels, and he was really good at the beginning of the season. It seems like he's leveled off. You've got Caleb Williams that got a little bit better with the new offensive coordinator. Drake May is kind of hovering where he's at. We're not seeing anything from J.J. McCarthy because he's out. But you look at like the big 4. So Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix. Who am I forgetting? Drake May. Drake May. You look at those 4, and out of those 4, you have to put Bo Nix at the top right now.
Yeah.
And
am I the only one that
just getting better?
Yeah. Did Mike's premium internet just glitch there a minute ago?
No, my brain glitched.
I think the people that are stuck on the Jaden Daniels they were so sold on him from the get-go that it's really hard to pry him off of Jaden Daniels.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. There's gonna be a couple people at the end of the year, even if the play continues the same, that they're gonna stick with Jaden Daniels is their pick. I just think that I think Bo's done it with less. I think he's done it with nobody had this expectations. I mean, including myself, unrealistic Bronco fans from that preseason performance. We thought that it would translate over, but his preseason is completely different. So, yeah, he's grown every week though, and it doesn't seem like he's taking any sets back. Even if they score less points, he's still making good decisions. And some eye-opening plays, opening his own eyes. What was he on? Is he on drugs? When he was like looking at what's his face and staring at him like, oh. What was that about?
I don't know, but it was funny.
The Adderall. Anyway, yeah. This guy's I have him as my Rookie of the Year so far right now. I honestly haven't seen enough Jaden Daniels though, just mostly highlights and whatnot, but
yeah.
I've watched a lot of Jaden Daniels just because I'm a big fan of his. I was a big fan of his coming out of the draft. Like, he was the guy that I was saying, this dude could be really, really special in the NFL. And so I've watched a lot of him. And I'll say that over these last 4 games in particular, he's really kind of fallen down a little bit. Part of that's due to him playing through an injury. I still think that his ribs are bothering him. But the other part is Cliff Kingsbury. I think that schematically, the NFL is starting to come up with some answers with what Cliff Kingsbury likes to do, especially in the run game. And I think that they haven't been able to come up with answers to those answers. And it's been kind of tough goings in Washington these past few weeks, because I think that the NFL is starting to catch up to what this team does well. And we've seen this with Cliff Kingsbury-led offenses before, where they're lighting up the NFL in the first 7-8 weeks of the year. And then the last 7-8 weeks of the year, they just completely fall off of a cliff, no pun intended. So we'll see what happens here, man. But as far as what Bo Nix has done, especially ever since week 5, the dude is putting up elite numbers for any quarterback, not just a rookie quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. But he's also making really good decisions with the football. He's not putting the ball in harm's way. He's elevating a lack of offensive talent around him. He's making Devon Vele, who's emerging as a good player, but he's making Devon Vele, Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, Lil Jordan Humphrey. He's making all these guys look like a superstar receiving core when Jaden Daniels, he's got more weapons, and you could argue that he's not doing as much over these last few weeks with more.
Mm-hmm.
So a question that I have, and this kind of goes with David's question here, wanted to know what adjustments we think Sean will make in the offseason. Is it that Nix is making his receivers look better, or are the receivers actually getting better to where we don't need to go out of the way next offseason to try to acquire one? We don't need to take a high draft pick to get one. We can focus it somewhere else.
I think we need to continue to build that receiving core. I think it's Bo Nix and Sean Payton's execution on those plays, and they're getting the most out of they can with those receiving core. I think this is like their ceiling kind of situation.
Yep.
I don't know, at least for the little Jordan Humphrey. But I think you got to continue to build this receiving core. I don't know if it's going to be through a veteran, through free agency, or through the draft. It's most likely going to be the draft. But, yeah, you can't just settle and think this is good enough.
Yeah,
And
go ahead.
Cortland Sutton is getting up there in age, so you do have to think about more long-term here. Who is going to be your wide receiver one for the next 5-6 years? That's why I want to pivot towards the draft. I do think that you should be looking to spend your first-round pick on a receiver. I also think that you should add one later in the draft and sign one in free agency. I'm all for moving Marvin Mims full-time to running back at this point. I think that the way they've been able to utilize him as a scat back these last few weeks, he's almost emerging into the role that I was hoping Jaleel McLaughlin would merge into. Now, Jaleel definitely is good in spurts, sprinkling him in. He can have that little burst between the tackles, and he can provide you some nice change of pace that way. But I think that as a receiver out of the backfield, Marvin Mims has shown some really special stuff, and even just getting the ball in like little halfback sweeps or stuff like that. I think that I'm all for turning him into just a utility player out of the backfield at this point and keeping him in his original role as a return man. So that would open up a void on the receiving core. You're hoping Troy Franklin's going to develop. We'll see what happens there. I do think that if you have the opportunity to upgrade over Troy Franklin, you take that opportunity. I also think that we can almost pencil in the Broncos bringing in Tez Johnson, Bo Nix's adopted brother and receiver at Oregon. I think that that's something we should definitely be looking at. The Broncos have been at Oregon pretty heavily this season, scouting players, and I imagine they've got their eyes on Tez Johnson, and Bo Nix probably is in the ear of Sean and George, all like, hey, you should draft my brother.
What if they're just like, hey, you told us to draft Alex Forsyth. Shut up. No, I'm just joking. No, yeah, I've seen that little documentary that with Tez Johnson, how they adopted it. That was a really, really sweet story of his family and how they took him in and how it all played out. There's a lot of football stuff like that. What was it, Jimmy Graham? Somebody I think his mom left him at the neighbor's house and just never came back or something. The old Saints tight end. And then you have Curtis Martin. I don't know. There
was that Jimmy Graham or was that Jeremy Shockey?
No, I think somebody tried to do that with Jeremy Shockey, but he found his way back.
Well, he was 18 years old.
It's like I'm camping and just never came back. They're like, set up the tent. And they just left.
But Ken, I do need to correct you. It was Forsyth that it recommended Nix. So we have to give Alex the kudos for propping up his guy.
Just not.
Yeah. I feel bad for him still on that block though. Like when they explained what you're supposed to do in that position, where you're supposed to stab one person with one hand, stab the other one with the other hand, and then let the other dude run you over without touching him. I mean, I feel like there's a better way to set up an offensive line somehow for a kick. I guess there's not, but
David wants to know what tight end. I think it was Jimmy Graham.
Yeah, I think it was Jimmy Graham.
Oh, I hadn't heard that. That's crazy.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's a lot of
crazy stories. Have the equivalent weight of like 2 elephants collapsing right on you at once. That's almost impossible for any human being to handle. You could have probably at least seen the issue with Forsythe's feet. Like the Chiefs themselves said that he has light feet and you can get him with the bull rush, but it's hard to maintain your anchor when you literally have two elephants collapsing on you and you're trying to hold up.
It's like a 50% chance I would have died if that would have been me.
Yeah, I think that
I was leaning more towards 80. Like there's
80?
an 80% chance I'm dying.
No, I'll do
If I
PLF.
got-
I'm looking at your build, and I think we're safe that you're not going to ever be on the left side of the line on a field goal.
I did play D tackle in 7th grade. I was terrible.
You just gotta walk out with your elbows out. Where's
Just-
So in 7th grade, you just had to hold up against baby elephants then.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I don't fully agree with your takes on wide receivers like Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims, Devon Vele. We're not actually maybe Mims, but we're not actually thinking that this is the ceiling for Troy Franklin and Devon Vele, right? Like,
well, not Vele. Franklin.
Well,
I don't
but
know.
why is this the ceiling on Troy Franklin now?
Because there were concerns about Franklin coming out of the draft that he was basically just kind of a straight downhill runner and that his route running was suspect, his hands were a little bit suspect, and unfortunately I think we've seen both of those in the NFL at this point, and I just don't know how much better it's going to get over time.
I mean, look at it. If you think about it, Mike, he's had 2 touchdowns go right through his hands on perfectly thrown bombs by Bo Nix. You know, every time the ball goes to Franklin, and you know, he had a nice. There was the 26-yard play that converted on the 1st and 20. That was a great play, but I don't have a lot of faith when the ball's heading in his direction that he's either going to catch it or going to hang on to it. It just makes me a little bit nervous. He's very, excited to stand up and do the first down motion. And, you know, dude, you make too many mistakes to be, primping like that. Get back in the huddle. Like, let's worry about making sure your execution is right on par.
I mean, I guess one thing, sorry, Ken, one thing I will say is like Jeff Bryan brings up with Jerry Rice. Like, you look at all the drops and struggles he had his first season. You got Rod Smith that came off, like he was an unrestricted free agent or an undrafted free agent, like off the practice squad. Shannon Sharp, Terrell Davis, like all these guys that were low draft picks that had issues in their first and second year, but were able to grow and get better. And you look at this coaching staff the way it is now and how many of our rookies are hitting this year. I don't see why we would have to go out of our way to go get more wide receivers when we could potentially have 2 superstars in Troy Franklin and Devon Vele that are just going to get better.
Well, I think we need to think about the timing of this too. How long is it going to take Troy Franklin to develop into a star? I think Vele's on a much quicker track right now than Franklin is, and that's kind of to be expected given Vele's age. So for me, it's I just don't know if we can be patient with Franklin when the expectations for this team have shifted. This team is going to be a Super Bowl contender next year if all things go correctly. I mean, if we can add some more pieces to the cupboard and we can acquire some talent, this team's already a playoff team this year. Imagine what they could be next year when they actually have more to work with. So I just don't know if we have the patience to be waiting on Troy Franklin to develop when you could acquire somebody who's already a more finished product and plug and play them immediately, and you'd be soaring at that point.
Okay.
But I don't think anyone's saying give up on Franklin completely. I think what the point is that we really do need to keep our options open. And, we're not that far removed from 3 or 4 weeks ago talking about like, holy shit, we're thin at wide receiver. Like, we really need some guys to start producing. Maybe it was a little bit longer than that, but it was, say mid-season that our wide receiver core was not where anyone really wanted it to be, even though we were squeaking through some of these games. So, you got to keep your options open. I, for one, am not a big fan of spending $25-30 million on one wide receiver contract. I think there are so many players available that you can get somebody solid, and that that rarefied air of a Justin Jefferson is so rare that you don't need to spend that kind of money. But we got to keep our options open, whether through the draft or to see what else is out there for agent.
Yeah, it's like what we were looking at, Luther Burden from Missouri. The later rounds, I know that CU's got a couple guys that might go later, like what's his face, Will Shepard.
Yeah,
that's a guy more of Sean Payton's kind of body type. But I prefer Webster, DeJounte Webster. He's a little shifty guy. He's a small guy, but he plays like a pit bull and he gets open.
Yeah. Wester's a playmaker. I love me some LeJounte Wester. I would totally be down for that.
Landon says Nick Nash.
Who's Nick Nash out of? I haven't started scouting yet, in fairness.
Nash Bridges.
Is that one of those names that we tricked Bill on? Like, I gotta make sure.
I was reading it going, okay, does it mean anything? I don't think so. I hope not, because that's my son. I'm gonna yell at him in the living room. Hey! Pull that crap on me.
Okay, he's out of San Jose State.
Okay.
Landon's just showing off.
What about that K-State running back? Was it Giddy? I don't even know if he's up for the draft this next year, but he destroyed CU.
How about Neal?
Yeah, both those guys, K-State and Kansas. But I feel like the K-State. No, they both were pretty. Yeah, they could just rip off 10-yard runs whenever they felt like it.
It felt like watching the Broncos-Dolphins game.
Yes,
A-Chain.
Yeah.
You think
I never
Denver
knew who A-Chain was before.
You think Denver would draft a running back in the first round?
The Ginty or what is it?
Probably not if it's not Ashton Genty.
I mean, at this point, that's got to be the weakest group on the field, right? Running back,
tight end.
Yeah.
Tight end. It's
you think so?
Tight end for me, yes.
Because it doesn't seem like we're struggling all that much. I mean, a little bit, but
and tight end on the kicking on the on the kick blocking too, because apparently that's what Forsyth's position is on the line. Yeah. That's the tight end.
Although, to be fair, with the way that Gage was talking up Javonte, he's right under Saquon. So I guess we're fine at the running back position. Yeah. Gage.
He has one good game, for God's sake. Now we look at him and he goes.
Now hold on a second. You said he had a great game. Like 4
it was okay. And it was by his standards, but his standards right now is 8 carries for -2 yards, like he had against Vegas.
I love it. Gage is so good that Mike has to reach back 4 weeks ago to get something that he can disagree with.
What else do you want me to do?
Quite the compliment.
I mean,
he's not even carrying people into the end zone anymore. He's getting carried into the end zone.
I didn't have feet on the ground. And my thing is, like, when you look at Sean Payton and his usage of tight ends so far, it's mostly just blocking. So I don't understand why
it's because
tight end would be a weaker position than running back right now.
He knows he doesn't have a guy, but when you look at like every single productive Sean Payton offense in New Orleans, from Jeremy Shockey to Jimmy Graham to a couple years with Jared Cook, I'm definitely missing a guy or two, but Sean Payton has always had an elite tight end, and he's just never had that in Denver. And you ask Drew Brees, you ask Chase Daniel, like you ask everybody who knows what Sean Payton likes to do, they'll tell you that he does not have that number one tight end that he had for all of those years in New Orleans. So I think tight end is going to be a position the Broncos are going to look to invest heavily in this year. Running back, I do think they might add a couple more pieces to the cupboard, but I do know that they like Estime long-term. I know that they like Jaleel McLaughlin as a change of pace guy, and even now potentially Marvin Mims in that mix as well as kind of a scat back. I think that right now tight end is the more pressing need, followed by wide receiver, I would say.
Why aren't we seeing a lot of Estime?
I don't know, because I would have thought that this past game would have been a good game to get him more involved, because Javonte Williams wasn't doing crap. I will also say that the run blocking was very bad in the game against the Raiders. I thought that Luke Wattenberg, we saw him multiple times get blown up off the line. We saw Ben Powers get blown up off the line a time or two. Like, the run blocking was definitely subpar in that game.
You know, earlier in the show, I said it's not hard to get to 1,000 yards. You just need to average 60 yards a game. I just pulled up the Broncos rushing statistics. Javonte Williams is leading the Broncos in rushing with 445 yards in 12 games, 37.1 yards a game.
What's his yards per carry?
3.7. And Bo Nix has 300 yards. He's second.
Yeah, I was going to say Bo Nix has to be super close behind him.
When your quarterback is towards the top of your team in rushing yards, and then you know you've got a problem. Yeah, and your quarterback's name's not Lamar Jackson exactly, then you know you've got a problem.
Yeah.
And you know what's crazy is that on that team that he doesn't lead. It's Derrick Henry is far away. I know he's the running back and he's supposed to have more, but Derrick Henry's killing it this year.
It's amazing.
Man,
hell, even like on the years, even the other year that Lamar won MVP in like 2019, you know, Mark Ingram rushed for 1,000 yards. He was still like far ahead of Lamar on the rushing yards total.
Yeah.
He's won 2 MVPs already?
Yeah.
Lamar, yeah.
I thought last year was his first.
No, he won it his first year as a starter in 2019.
And he got picked 30th. Nobody had faith he could be a quarterback.
Yeah. All right, so we go into all that. I mean, obviously, we don't need to recap the Raiders game that much. Everybody saw it. It was a Raiders game that they got swept. You suck.
I haven't heard or seen them in a minute now.
Yeah, they're all quiet now. Where'd they go?
Year after year, just talking all that trash. Now they're just gone. Sorry.
We go into primetime Monday night. Broncos, Browns. And we got a little bit of a different Browns team because we got Jameis Winston, who's winning through the power of Jesus.
Is that
all of his interviews? like I love me some Jesus too, but man, he's hyper. He's hyped. He's ready to go. Jesus, take the wheel. Let's play in some snow.
Jesus, take the wheel and
where he like licks his
on the side of my car, right?
That's not the only snow that Jameis put in his body that day.
Right?
Have you ever seen the videos of him like giving his speeches and the guys in the background like, what? Like Deshaun Jackson was
he was trying to eat the W.
Yeah,
we're gonna eat a W. You're like, whoa.
He's so weird.
I may be doing some wacky shit, but I'll be running through a wall with Jameis while doing that wacky shit.
He seems like a fun person to play with.
Yeah. And I get it. Like you were drafted high, you started, you got benched, you had to stay as a backup for years upon years upon years, and now you finally get back in the starting lineup. And the Browns are playing better. I wouldn't say good. They're playing better. So I get it. I mean, he's hyped. He's excited to play. But that does add a wrinkle into the Broncos defense playing against Jameis Winston and the Browns offense.
Definitely.
Yeah. And that Browns offense is starting to find some chemistry, especially between Jameis Winston and Jerry Jeudy. I thought Jeudy was awesome in that game against Pittsburgh, and I think that Judy's going to be out for some revenge in this game. I think that the matchup between Jeudy and Surtain is going to be really fun and something to really pay attention to because Jameis and him are starting to find that chemistry. I think that Nick Chubb is starting to kind of get back into the groove a little bit, coming off of that really gruesome knee injury that he had. They've still got David Njoku in there in that offense as well. Their offensive line, it has been injured, but overall, they're still one of the top offensive lines in football. This Browns team is challenging. And did I mention Myles Garrett is a one-man wrecking crew? I'm going to have to move up my cat. Hold on a second.
His cat's name is Myles Garrett.
Real quick, while he's moving his kitty.
Dude was
Is Allen okay, or is he going to miss another game?
Sean Payton said in his Monday press conference call that Allen's good.
Okay.
Whatever that means, right? Yeah.
What was I gonna say?
Peyton is not.
You said City, and then everything went crazy.
I was gonna say against Judy, I think you got to kind of rough him up a little bit. He seems like he's very easy to get under his skin.
Mm-hmm.
Even intentionally hold him. I don't care if we do it, just so he just gets super frustrated. Remember that year that he had that huge game against Kansas City where he had like 3 touchdowns. We almost beat him with Russell Wilson. And before that, he should have been thrown out of the game. He like shoved the referee out of the way.
Yes, he did.
So I think you can easily get under his skin. But once he gets on a roll, I don't know.
Yeah, just keep your helmet on your head.
I mean, wasn't there a stretch where like 4 or 5 consecutive plays went to him the other night? Am I dreaming that, or did?
I don't know. I know he had a 140-yard game or something like that a couple of games ago.
Yeah.
Well, when he doesn't get the ball, he gets pissed off because even a few times this year with Watson, like we saw Judy pissed off on the sideline, throwing his helmet, just throwing diva temper tantrums. So that is a good point, Ken. I think that we could definitely get under Judy's skin a little bit here, and we could definitely make him a little bit uncomfortable. I think Surtain should play press on him pretty much the whole game. Just get your hands on him and just rough him up, make him mad, make him frustrated. And once he starts having those mental bugaboos, that's when we might see the old Jerry Jeudy where he's dropping passes and we see him get pissed off and throw his helmet on the sideline. That's what we want to see in this game. So if there's anybody that knows how to get under Judy's skin, it's the guy who went against him in practice for all those years every single day in Pat Surtain. So I'm excited, man. I think that we definitely have an opportunity to take Judy out of this game. And if we can take Judy out of this game, then it's going to be hard for this Browns offense to get much going. And I want to bring up a comment earlier about our offensive line handling Myles Garrett. That comment just popped up. Garrett Bowles has actually historically done a really good job handling Myles Garrett. He handled him really well in the Browns matchup against the Broncos in 2019, and he handled him really well in the matchup last year as well. So I do think that the Broncos kind of have the leg up when it comes to taking care of Myles Garrett. So that's something else to pay attention to.
And this is a great point. And with Amari Cooper being gone, great for us. Like, that's what you get for putting Deshaun Watson over your wide receiver.
Yeah. What was I going to say?
I don't know.
I forgot. I was going to say something until I forgot.
We were talking about Jameis earlier. Somebody had said, like he's like a 90s like sitcom character that every time they would come through the door, the audience would applaud, like when he
like Kramer. He's come through just like busting the door like with his fingers.
Well, like, did you see the post-game interview he did with the panel?
Oh,
After that was all done, they dove onto the field and did snow angels and then had a snowball fight.
Yeah.
This seems like such a fun dude to hang out with. You might get arrested in the end of the night, but it's
okay. You had fun before that. It's all right.
Oh, I was going to say about Jerry Jeudy and PS2. Apparently, they know each other from way before Alabama. They know each other from like Kiwi football days, whatever. Where PS2, because I remember Jerry Judy's like, people don't realize that PS2 actually was a running back, and he was like a really good running back. And they knew each other from like way back. So maybe he doesn't try to get out of under his skin. Maybe he just tries to straight up just beat him straight up. But because it seems like they are really close with each other. But I don't know.
It's a lot of guys when they get mad, they play better, and Jeudy is not one of them. I mean, that's where like Gage was talking about the drops. Like we can't. That was the biggest knock on this guy. Aside from when he was healthy, he was constantly. At least that was the narrative. It seemed like he was constantly dropping the ball, even though statistics didn't support that. But I love that strategy of just trying to get him just irritated and getting his head out of the game.
Yeah, I feel like there needs to be an Aqib Talib like snatch your chain kind of moment. Michael Crabtree, we need one of those. Like you want to piss off Jeudy, snatch his chain.
I even tried to call Jeudy a couple of times to give him some confidence, but the call kept getting dropped.
Oh.
Yeah, you need tickets for Monday.
I already got mine. Thank you, dude. Appreciate it. I'm gonna be going with a friend, so we both got tickets already.
Awesome. Where do you guys go before the game?
Yeah.
Do you pregame anywhere, or do you just straight from the house?
I don't. I mean, for me, game day is pretty much a work day. So
True.
I arrive at the stadium. I do like my pregame show and all that stuff. So yeah, it's pretty much just a business day for me.
I guess you can pregame food wise, but not.
I mean, I gotta be honest. Glenn and Mike can both attest to this. Like, I don't really eat or drink much during the games because I don't like to get up to go pee.
Oh, okay.
So I literally, I don't really eat much, and I'll have like a Mountain Dew or some water or something that I'll drink like sporadically during the game. But yeah, I kind of pulled the Scott Hansen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my pregame is usually just trying to keep up with Glenn. Like, he walks too dang fast.
I know the Scott Hansen now. They're the NFL Red Zone guy, right?
Yeah.
I did hear that story about him because he's there all day.
Yep, he doesn't move from his station for that full 6 hours. So, yeah, he doesn't go to the bathroom at all during that time.
Yeah, no.
Wow.
All right, so what are we thinking? Final score: Broncos-Browns.
I guess I'll go first. I think that the Browns are gonna go in there and play scrappy, tough football. There are some familiarities here, obviously. Jerry Jeudy returning to Denver. Jameis Winston used to play with the Saints under Sean Payton. A lot of his old coaches are here in Denver, so Jameis Winston might have a little chip on his shoulder because Pete Carmichael, his old offensive coordinator that benched him, he's here in Denver now. So I do think that the Browns are going to come get to this game with just something to prove. They're going to have a chip on their shoulder, but the Broncos are a better football team than the Cleveland Browns are. I think that the Broncos should take care of business. It's probably going to be a closer game than we want it to be. So I'm going to say Denver 24-20, but I do think that Denver is going to come out. They'll make enough plays offensively. They'll be able to neutralize Myles Garrett to the point where at least he'll maybe only get like one big play, maybe two in this game. But I think overall, if Denver is going to be taken seriously, this is another game that they should win.
David's got 38-6. Woo!
I was going to say 24-13, yeah, like Landon. I think they'll have like one touchdown drive, a couple field goal drives, but the defense is going to keep them closer to their 50 or on their side of the 50. They're not really going to cross the 50-yard line too much against us. Maybe a mix in with a turnover and always the dependable Nick Benito sack. I don't know if Nick's is going to have a huge game. I still see him doing like 200 yards and a touchdown rushing and a touchdown passing. So, yeah, 24-13.
So I think it's also going to be a little bit closer than I'd like. But, this Broncos team is on a roll. They believe in themselves. They believe in the quarterback. And Monday Night Football, this stadium is going to be absolutely hopping. I think it's probably going to be the busiest or the biggest capacity that we've seen thus far this year. Broncos are averaging over 74,000 a game in a 76,000 stadium. So I've got Denver winning 31-23.
Wow. I've got Denver winning 27-16. I think it's going to be close to what the Raiders score was. And I think that the Browns are going to end up scoring the touchdown that they get at the end of the game trying to play catch up. So I think it's going to be 27-16.
Yeah, it's either the end of the game touchdown or that very first initial drive touchdown. It seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it seems like one or the other
Caps, isn't it?
Broncos team.
It's
Yep, it's
snow
caps
blue,
and the Navy unis.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so cool.
Oh, I actually have a little replica of the snow caps. From the
Ooh,
syndicate.
that's pretty dope. Oh, you got to put it on the shelf behind you.
I don't have a shelf behind me right now. I'll have to find something eventually.
You got to get your
Oh,
Tim Taylor,
Yeah, Black
Tim
Friday's
Taylor
coming
on.
up, man. You get yourself for like $8.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea, actually.
All right. Anything else we need to cover? Anything we forgot?
Oh, One small thing. I saw Terrell Davis on a Raiders podcast.
No.
Really?
That was kind of weird. I
Doppelganger.
didn't even watch the whole thing. I watched like 5 minutes of it. I was like, I'm out of here.
Hey, Terrell, come on our podcast.
Right?
Yeah.
Come on, TD. Give us some of that CBD, whatever. So, yes.
Hey, man, I'm wearing a cannabis company shirt. I'll plug your product.
My joints are hurting, man. Come on.
My everything hurts.
Does anybody know what this is from?
I
Back
don't.
up a little bit. No. What is that?
Star Wars.
It's from Aliens. Remember Bill Paxton?
Yeah.
He's like, oh man, they're coming to get us, man. That was like the radar when they ended up being in the ceiling. The aliens were in the ceiling.
Yeah.
That's what that's from. I get these shirts from TeePublic. They're pretty cool shirts.
Uh-oh. So we need to have a discussion. What discussion do we need to have?
So we need to have a discussion.
Oh. Why the heck hasn't Elway met Nick? Seems very odd to me. Nah, you can miss me.
Do you think it's kind of like, I know he says he doesn't want to get like have too many voices in his head, essentially, with people just coming on left and right telling him what to do. Do you think he kind of is a little jealous?
Who, John?
He is becoming like a star overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And
I don't know.
I mean, maybe, because, I mean, you'd think like, well, maybe he'd be jealous of Peyton Manning. But he's the one that brought Manning in, whereas Bo Nix really has no connection to John Elway in any way. So maybe.
Ever since he came back, nobody's even brought up Elway's name, really. I don't know. He just seems like he's almost not forgotten. He's a legend.
It was probably the whole Paxton Lynch thing.
He just seems like he's a guy who's like one of those big stars. They want to be talked about. They want to be the guy when they're kind of not the guy anymore.
Well,
But also, you know, what are we saying? Oh, go ahead, Gage.
You hear all these conspiracies about how John Elway's still running the show secretly and all this nonsense. I think we can now put all of that stuff to bed. Because if John Elway hasn't even met Bo Nix, then that tells you that he's not in the building much, if at all. So, I don't know, man. I don't think it's really the biggest of deals. Like, I think there have been opportunities, like John said, and it just hasn't materialized. I don't think that there's really anything big to talk about here. I just think that it'll happen sooner rather than later. They'll cross paths at a game. They'll cross paths here in the community or something like that. John will probably show up in the building for some function and they'll cross paths then. So I think it will happen eventually. I don't think it's really anything that.
I think Bo Nix has a huge game and he's sitting at home and he gets a call from an unknown number. And it's
You know, it's one of those things, though, is what are we all saying about Bo? Finally, we got a quarterback. You know, we've been dealing with all these like crappy QBs, you know, for the last 10 years. And who was responsible for most of those quarterbacks for the last 10 years, right? So, like, that may I wonder if that plays into it. You know, John does have a huge ego. He's not known to be the nicest guy in the world around town. So it was interesting, though. That seemed to be, you know, it was almost as interesting as Mike Vrabel saying that Urban Meyer didn't know who he was when he'd been on his staff for 2 years. And he was a head coach. That was a weird thing, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
All right. Well, we want to thank Mr. Ken Booker, KB82, for joining us on tonight's show. Ken, where can people find your stuff?
Hey, yeah, so you can go to Twitter or X, and you can find me at Kenneth_MHH. I usually post all my articles on there. Some funny stuff, too. I don't always just post football, just some UFC and some football, basketball, baseball, all that stuff. Anything funny or sports. So, yeah, Kenneth_MHH is where you can find me.
Awesome. And you can find everything else that the network has besides this show and this show on the MHRT network. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram. What's that blue butterfly one? Blue Sky? Is that it?
Yeah.
Blue Sky? Yeah, that one. Not much on there, but we're there. So just so you know. But yeah, we have a whole bunch of different shows on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then the neighborhood on game day. So this next one will be on Monday night. And then we're also partnering with the Orange and Blue Network, who has shows on Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and then the pre and post game show. So make sure you go find a show you like, give it a like, give the network a like. It's absolutely free. Takes 0.1 second to do, and we would greatly appreciate it. We love the Broncos. We love Broncos.
Hey, Mike, real quick though, we got to.
What do you want?
Listen, Gage is killing it with Broncos Syndicate. Between his lives, his videos, the works, the guy is one of the hardest working people in Broncos country media, and I just want to give him a shout out before closing
Definitely,
things off.
Gage. I love your stuff.
So, as
Appreciate
I
it,
was
guys.
going to say before I was rudely interrupted, we love Broncos. We love Broncos country.
I love your stuff, Gage.
We love Gage Madrid on Broncos Syndicate. Make sure you go check him out on the Broncos Syndicate page. Glenn, you jerk! Ruined the whole flow. I was going.
Yeah, you were going to ignore one of our key guys, but that's fine.
That's where I was.
Screw you guys. I'm going home.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flight miles.